Okay, so let's think about this in the example of the market for oats. Okay, so again, this is a pretty homogeneous product. One producer of oats is producing a very similar product to another producer of oats. Okay, if there were an increase in demand for oats, this would be represented by this shift in the demand curve, where there's an increase in the quantity demanded at any price. Okay, and if there's this shift in the demand curve, supply would increase with all of the existing suppliers producing more, resulting in a new equilibrium price. We would have an increased price and an increase in the quantity produced adhere to Q2. So in the short term, for the individual producer, they would experience just an increase in the price that they're getting for their oats, and this is a shift in their marginal returns. Remember, that is the same as their demand curve that they're experiencing. A shift in their marginal returns up from 1.7 to 2.3. Okay, so they were making zero economic profit here. Okay, and because their average total costs was equal to their marginal returns. But at this new price, they increased their production until their marginal costs again is equal to their marginal returns. So they increase their production to here. And this means that there is now a gap between their marginal returns and their average total costs. And that means that they will be making an economic profit in the short term. Okay, but only in the short term, because in the longer term, this economic profit that they're making will cause a shift in the supply curve. Yeah, so as new entrants enter the market, because of this opportunity for a economic profit in that market, this will shift the supply curve, causing an increase in the quantity supplied at any price and a decrease in the equilibrium price. Okay, so the equilibrium price will go back down to 1.7 in the longer term, but just at a larger quantity produced here. Okay, so in the long term, their economic profit will disappear as there's no barrier to entry. More producers of oats will enter into the market. Okay, so that's what we're saying, that the supply will increase. There'll be a shift in the supply curve here, and this supply curve was based on all of the existing firms operating, how much they could produce at what price, but there will be new firms entering the market for oats, and that will cause a shift in the supply curve. Okay, and we'll end up losing our economic profit. So to summarize, the initial increase in demand, represented by this shift in the demand curve from D1 to D2, let's just shift this way, okay, leads to a new equilibrium price which is higher than before, an increase in the equilibrium price from 1.7 to 2.3. But this higher price, which allows for an economic profit, will attract new firms to enter into this marketplace. These new firms entering the marketplace will cause a shift in the supply curve from S1 to S2. Okay, and this shift in the supply curve will lead to a new equilibrium, okay, here at C, reducing the equilibrium price back down to 1.7 again, removing the economic profit. This is introducing this idea that in a perfectly competitive market, it is impossible for a firm to make economic profits in the long run. Now remember, they will be making accounting profits, but the profits they're making should be roughly equal to the return on capital of interest, for example, and the return that the entrepreneur could make with other uses of his time. So the accounting profits that they're making will equal the opportunity costs of all of the inputs, meaning that the economic profits will be zero. So the conclusion is that short-run changes will allow for economic profits for individual firms. They'll also allow for economic losses, but in the long run, these economic profits will lead to new firms entering the market. If there are economic losses, some firms will leave the market, and it will return the overall supply of the goods or services to be at an amount that will lead to zero economic profits. Okay, so the entry of new firms eliminates the profits of the existing firms. That's why we can describe the firms in a perfectly competitive market as price takers. They must take the price that is determined by the market, and they have no control over the price. If a firm did decide to charge a higher price, what would happen? Nobody would buy their product. If one of the firms is charging twice as much for cabbages, you would just buy it from the other firms that are charging the market price for cabbages. They would lose all of their customers. Okay? Because the products are homogeneous, if you don't buy it from one producer, you can buy it from another producer at the market price. Okay? As the firm is small compared to the overall market, no matter how much they sell, they cannot shift the market price. They must take the market price. Okay? So there's no reason for them to charge lower than the market price. If they charge lower, they won't increase the quantity that they sell. They'll just sell all of their products and make less. So they should charge the market price. We can describe this as being a demand curve that is fully elastic. Okay, that's what we see. A perfectly elastic demand curve is a horizontal line, and that's what we see for individual firms operating in a perfectly competitive market. Okay, so a firm can sell as little as it wants or as much as it wants at the market price, and that won't change the market price. That's in perfectly competitive markets. Remember, they're characterized by having many firms operating in that market, all selling things that are roughly the same, that are homogeneous. Okay, so see that on a graph. If the firm sells 10 units, they will get a price of $5. If they sell 20 units, they will get a price of $5. If they sell 30 units, they will get a price of $5. The price isn't changing no matter how many units they sell. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. Okay, so you get this horizontal line where the price is not changing no matter how much they sell. This is what we describe as a perfectly elastic demand curve. It is a horizontal line at the market price, and it doesn't change no matter how much that individual firm produces. Okay, that is our perfectly elastic demand curve. Okay, we're going to recall some definitions that we're going to show on some graphs later on. So first of all, the total revenue is defined as being the total amount of money coming in, and it is calculated by multiplying the price by the quantity. Remember, in a market which is perfectly competitive, the price is fixed. So it's going to be the price multiplied by the quantity. And we can represent that with letters here. The marginal revenue is defined as being the additional revenue earned by selling one additional unit. So the revenue made by selling the next unit. And we can write that as a formula there. Marginal revenue is delta total revenue, so the change in the total revenue divided by delta Q, or the change in the quantity produced, or we can describe that as the change in the total revenue per unit produced, okay, or the change in total revenue for one extra unit